state. Russia is a terrorist state. How it's possible in 21st century for 20,000 people to be kidnapped in one swoop? Please, if you have an explanation, I would love to hear it. But unless I have it, and unless I believe it, I will remain firm in my belief that Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Do enjoy the environment here, very happy environment. Друзі, я вам всім хотів сказати дякую за велику повагу, за...
Right, so my name is Daniel. I'm a reenactor with a fairly big Soviet reenactment group in the country. I've come down here today because I myself have heritage with the entire celebration. I myself hail from the ex-Soviet Union. Well, I was born here, but my family's from the ex-Soviet Union. My grandfathers, my great-grandfathers all fought for the same country to liberate Europe from Nazism and fascism. And I've come down here to celebrate the victory over that exact Nazism and fascism. And of course, England and all the other Western countries do still celebrate it on the 8th of May, as the document to signify the capitulation of Germany was signed by quite a few people from all sorts of countries. In Moscow, according to Moscow time rather, of course it was signed in Berlin, according to Moscow time it was signed at 12:30 a.m. And that's why we celebrate it on the 9th of May and not the 8th of May like the other Western countries do. Of course, so I'm dressed up as a senior sergeant of a rifle regiment. Of course, going off some of the insignia I have, you might think that's not really an infantryman's badge. With that badge there, that signifies that I'm trained in parachute jumps. So I've done parachute training myself personally. I've jumped from a plane. I did a tow line jump. I keep forgetting the terminology. But I've come down here in uniform. Rather, I've come down in civilian clothing. I've come to celebrate, or rather, I've only really come down to lay flowers. Of course, commemorate the victory of Germany and the loss of peoples from the Soviet Union. All sorts of people here in uniform. I did bring my uniform with me because I'm a reenactor and we do also have an event after this. So everyone was in uniform and decided to throw mine on, of course, commemorate my fathers and forefathers. My uniform at the moment, I'm wearing the OBR 35, so it's the образец, which stands for sample, the model of 1935. This uniform was changed in 1943 to not have a collar, not have pockets, and have an open plank, as we call it. But in 1943, when the Soviet troops were when they had their uniforms changed, so to speak, of course there was a lack of the new uniform models. So what they did was they got rid of the collar tabs, because before then it was all, the ranks were done off the collars. So they got rid of they got rid of their collar tabs and they put shoulder boards on. So right now I'm technically dressed up as a Soviet senior sergeant from around 1943, even all the way until 1945, but in reality that wouldn't have been the case for Guards unit, as we would have had the highest level of logistics and supply. But of course, from 1943 to early 44, it would be completely fine. Any final messages? Well, my only real message is that this isn't awfully a political celebration, or political event rather. We come down here to celebrate the victory over fascism and Nazism. We've come down here to lay flowers, lay wreaths for all our relatives, everyone else who died in the Great Patriotic War and the Second World War overall as a whole, not just the Soviets, the English, the Americans, the French, everyone else. So one thing I would like to say is that please when you come down to an event like this, just be mindful that it's not awfully political. Of course, I understand I'm wearing a uniform from the time. That could be seen as slightly political and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, we are celebrating the victory over fascism, over Nazism, and we are mourning the deaths of our fathers, our forefathers, and everyone else, not just the Soviets who died in the Second World War to rid us from the evil of Nazism.
Це сьогодні навчився. Значить, друзі, оскільки вам так подобається, так сподобалася ця пісня «День Побєди», я ще раз її вам зроблю всім. Це для вас.
Good afternoon, my name is Pavlo. I and many other Ukrainians and supporters of Ukraine, we came here today to counter-protest against this event by the supporters of the Putin regime, of the current Putin regime. They claim that it's an event in the name of the Soviet soldiers who died fighting against Nazism, but this is a very thin excuse over what they're actually doing here. What they're doing here is supporting the current Russian regime. Look, I mean, I'm sure you've filmed the other guys over there on the other side. They got the Colorado Beetle ribbons. They got some of them have the Z's. Many of them have the Russian flags, modern day Russian flags. Many of them have the eagle, the two-headed eagle that they stole from the Byzantine Empire. It is no surprise that every single one of these individuals fully and completely supports the Russian regime. They didn't even try to hide it, honestly. I believe, and we all believe, that we should not allow people to make these silly excuses that, oh, you know, we're here just for the heroes of World War II. The Soviet Union started World War II on the same side as Nazi Germany. Let's not forget about that. The Soviet Union is not this heroic martyr state that was opposing the evil Nazis, and they were begging the Nazis excuse me, to join forces with them many times. Just that Hitler didn't really want to do that because he had plans to invade them already. But Stalin many times he tried to, make sure that Hitler would help him come in. They speak about collaborators with Nazi Germany. Soviet Union was the #1 collaborator. They were the ones who gave metal. They were the ones who gave oil. They were the ones who gave the Nazis the Ukrainian grain, which they took from the Ukrainians, starving the Ukrainians to death. Long story short, the point we're trying to make here today is the Russian regime is an enemy of the United Kingdom. That is acknowledged by the military and by the politics, by the politicians and by the people themselves of the United Kingdom. These people are supporting the enemy in the open. I don't think that is something excusable. I don't think that's something we should simply allow to go unopposed. I'm not saying we should ban them, but what we should do is to oppose the support of the enemies of this country with words, with freedom of speech, which is something we have in this country.
Are you okay with doing a protest on a day like this? And how do you feel about people being offended by anti-Russian slogans and waving the Ukraine flag on a day where the other side would probably argue that it's to do with remembering those that died on the Soviet side of World War II?
I mean, I think some things, like, for example, if you see someone of a different race and you start making jokes or discriminating against them, that is something in which the person doesn't really have a choice to be offended or not to be offended. But in this case, we're criticizing the Russian regime. It's the choice of these guys to support Russia. It's the choice of these guys to get offended with that. They themselves have used many racial slurs against us. They made fun of one of our friends who has a disability, who has cerebral palsy. One of these Russian ladies came to him and she said, "Oh, you know what? God has already punished you. Look at you now." Very unseemly behavior. So they were cursing, they were flipping us off, showing the middle finger, that kind of stuff. Some of them were threatening us here. We did not do such a thing. Sure, sometimes we said things that might be seen as offensive by them. However, these things are criticisms of their worldview. We were not criticizing them on the racial level. We were criticizing them in terms of their ideology. That is what we're here for. We are here to protest against an ideology, not against a race. These guys, they support hatred the Ukrainian ethnicity and denial of the existence of the Ukrainian ethnicity. And for those who are more savvy about how the Russian regime wages their war, who also have a lot of ethnic minorities that are being oppressed within Russia right now and are being sent to the meat grinder first, whilst the ethnic Russians in the big cities are allowed, are allowed to not go, to not die for their little leader's war, Putin's war. Lastly, I don't advocate to ban their ability to come here in the open, but I do advocate that every single time that people with unseemly opinions are allowed to do something like this, there will be a strong reaction to it. A few of the guys who came to us, they actually thanked us for coming here, because from far away they said they saw the Russian and the communist flags, and they said, oh man, I saw that, I was a bit disgruntled, disheartened. I was like, well, how is this allowed? And then they saw us, that we were counter-protesting. They were like, okay, that's good, that's good. There are some people who have common sense, who came here to give counterpoints, to show that these people are not correct, these people are not in the right. And I think that's very important. Once again, we were the victims, we were the targets of some threats, physical threats by some certain individuals here. We did not do any such thing, we did not threaten violence, but if people come out with these unseemly opinions, we will come out and we will speak against them. That's our cause, that's our point.
День Победы! День Победы! День Победы!
My name is Paul. I live in London. I lived for the last 40 years. Originally, I'm Italian. My father is Italian and he used to be in the Italian army. My mum is a Jewish refugee from Germany. She escaped Berlin in 1939, having lived through Kristallnacht, and she came with the Kindertransport. So, in the case of my mum, it was a question of bare survival. The situation is that in order to escape, they had to pay a millionaire's tax, so they had to shed everything they owned, everything they had. She came over, couldn't speak anything but German, and basically lost contact with her own family, and was forced in a way, because the conditions were such that she could only speak English in the end, and then she couldn't communicate with her mum when she grew up. She was only 6 when she arrived. My dad was in the Italian army, and he was escaping the Allied troops from the south. The army disbanded on the 8th of September 1943. He comes from an area which is partly German-speaking, to the extreme north of the country. When he escaped, he was captured actually in the territory where he lived by the German army, and when asked to join the German army, he declined, and he was sent to do forced labor. Forced labor in a prisoner of war camp that included many Soviet prisoners. And that is why my father always admired the Russians, because in their situation, they had a lot they went through. Loss of family, loss of where they lived, everything was in a terrible state, and they were actually treated very badly, to the edge of starvation. And they harbored a great anger that made them very courageous and defiant in the face of the Nazis. And my father admired them ever since. He got to know a professor who spoke Latin, who came from Siberia. He could only communicate with him in Latin because there was a language barrier, and a bit of broken German with some of the other prisoners. Now, the reason why I'm here today is I feel that I'm honoring both of my parents' memory by being here, in the fact that both of us suffered because of Nazism and because of fascism in our countries in Western Europe, and I think we owe a tremendous debt towards the Russian army that have managed to liberate us from this abomination, from this scourge that was fascism in Western Europe. very survivors depended on them, and they did a great job. And they also lost a lot of people in the process. They lost 27 million people fighting the abomination. Thank you very much.
Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой. Выходила, песню заводила, про степного сизого орла. Про того, которого любила, про того, чьи письма берегла. Про того, которого любила, про того, чьи письма берегла.